Hey there, Sunday School. So I've got a story for you today, and it's called The Widow's Offering. So this takes place actually just a couple days before Jesus was going to die on the cross. So these were the last couple days before he died. And he was at the temple, and all of his disciples were there too. And when they were at the temple, they'd kind of stay there. They'd talk. They'd worship. It was like a really just nice time. They'd spend a lot of time at the temple. Um, and Jesus was kind of like farther away from the disciples. The disciples were kind of, in the crowd. And Jesus actually went and sat down right where all the people who came to worship God, right where they would put in their offerings. So they'd put in the money that they set aside for God. Um, Now, in that temple, there were like 12, they call them 12 receptacles. They actually kind of were shaped like a trumpet, like a horn, if you think of that. And no, there weren't 12, there were 13. So there were 13 big receptacles where everyone would put in their offerings. Um, and then people would just kind of go by. There'd be like a line of people, or just as people came up, they'd put their stuff in the offering. Okay, so Jesus was sitting there nearby, and he was just watching these people. And Jesus, he could see what they were doing, he could see the money they were putting in, but then he could see something that we couldn't. He could see what was in their hearts. So a lot of these people were coming by, and they were putting a lot of rich people were putting really big amounts of money, generous amounts of money. And some of them were just, quietly like putting their money in there, giving their offering to God. Some of the rich people were like making a big show of it, like, oh, I have all this money. Look at all this money. And like, dumping it in. So then along came a widow. Now, she was very, very poor. And if you think about what life would have been like for a widow back when Jesus was alive, first of all, let me explain what a widow is. A widow is someone who was married, she had a husband, and then her husband died. And so not only was she like alone, she didn't have her husband, but also in that time it was the guys who did the work, and they would bring in money for the household. So her husband was the one who was earning the money and providing for the family. That's how she got food and clothes and a home. But now that he died, she did not have a way to make any money. And in those days, women really most of the time could not really get a job. It just wasn't how they did things. So she had become extremely poor, to the point where, she didn't know if she was going to be able to eat that next day. She didn't know if she would have the things that like you just need to live, like clothing and a place to lay your head at night to be protected. So she was extremely poor, but she loved Jesus, and she wanted to give an offering. So she went by. Jesus was watching her, and what she did is she placed two little coins into the offering receptacle. Now, these two coins, they were called leptons. So, two little leptons. And a lepton, two of them together, is worth much less than even a penny. So, they were these two thin, small copper coins, not even worth a penny. But here's the thing. Those two leptons were literally the last pieces of money that she had. So if she put those two coins into the offering, she literally did not have anything left after that. So she wouldn't be able to buy food. She wouldn't be able, to provide anything that she would have needed for life. So what made her do that? Well, Jesus could see into his heart, and he tells us in this story. He says, this woman, she firmly believed that God was in control and that God could provide for her. and her heart was full of faith and full of trust and full of gratitude for what God had done for her, gratitude that he had saved her and was going to take her to heaven, that even though if it meant starving, she didn't care. She wanted to give her offering, and that's what she did. And when Jesus saw this, he looked around, he kind of saw where his disciples were, and he like had them all come over, and he's like, hey, guys, look at this widow. She is extremely poor, and yet what she put in the offering plate, those 2 little copper coins, less than a penny, they would have bought you something less than a penny's worth. Jesus said, guys, she put in more than those wealthy people who came by with their loads of money and they were throwing them in and making a big deal. She gave more than them. And the disciples probably were a little confused. Like, Jesus, that's like, those really, I don't know. And Jesus explained to them what those rich people did, the people with more money, the people who are wealthy, some of them were giving, with gratitude, but they had a lot of money. They had a ton left over. So they didn't really have to worry about, like buying food and keeping even their bodies healthy. They didn't have to worry about that. So they gave out of their abundance. But this woman, she gave out of poverty. She didn't have anything to give, yet she gave it. Like, she literally gave everything she had. And Jesus explained to the disciples, that offering is so pleasing to God. When we give, and it means we got to trust in him to provide for us. We gotta just know he's in control and have so much gratitude in our hearts and be so thankful that we want to give everything we can. So he praised this woman. He said, disciples, this is how you should give when you give to God. And this is how you should help other people give when you give to God. Give with everything you've got, with a grateful heart and knowing that God's going to take care of us no matter what. And that is the story of the widow's offering. Bye.